Hello everyone. I am Xarkun and this is World of Warships Legends. Today, I've got my first impressions review of the new Tier 7 Premium IJN Cruiser Suzuya. We're going to take a look at my mod selection, commander build, the armor viewer, and then jump into some gameplay and talk about the ship's stats and how it plays. I'll say right off the bat, I really like it. I'm a fan. Mod selection up first, aiming systems mod 1 in the first slot, steering gears in the second, concealment in the third, and main battery reload mod in the fourth. Keep in mind that when I read you the stats, they will be the base stats of this ship. I'll point out where my commander build affects them, but they are affected by these mods, so keep that in mind. Commander, Azurlane Atago, rank 12, with Gunichi Mikawa and Azurlane Baltimore, who provides a boost in rudder shift as inspirations. You don't have AL Atago? Mikawa, in my opinion, is your guy. Now on to the armor viewer. As you can see, there is a lot of green on this ship, and that green is 25 millimeters of armor, which means that pretty much every part of this ship can be overmatched by the battleships you are going to see in the game. They'll have no problems penetrating, and if they're aiming for your citadel, they probably won't have any problems striking it either. As you can see, it's quite big, and it does jut above the waterline in the center of the ship, just behind the front turrets and the rear turrets. One interesting thing to note, though, is the citadel armor sloped deck, aka a turtleback. It's very, very narrow angle, 60 millimeters of plating. Doubt it's going to offer much protection at all. Battleships aren't going to be overmatching 60 millimeters, but they really don't have to, because just below the citadel, you can see flat armor plating that they could easily penetrate, and basically I don't think this turtleback scheme is really going to save you from taking any big salvos whatsoever. You can be punished heavily. Now onto the game, though. We are on the appropriately named Land of Fire map in a domination mode game, playing the Suzuya. And now we begin to talk about the stats. Hit points, 38,000, which isn't a whole lot for a cruiser at this tier because we have the heavy cruisers in the mix, but it's a fair amount for a light cruiser. And this is a light cruiser. It's a Mogami class cruiser, like the Tier 7 Tech Tree Japanese cruiser Mogami. The only difference is the gun size. Suzuya comes with 15 155mm guns placed in 5 triple turrets compared to the Mogami's 10 203mm guns in 5 double turrets. These guns have a 15.3 kilometer range, 8.8 second reload, and they traverse 180 degrees in 29.6 seconds. I've cut that down to 22.8 seconds with Azurlane Atago's ingenious skill. You can achieve the same thing with Mikawa's ingenious skill, and I highly recommend it because slow turret traverse is not a good thing, and anybody who tells you it's not a problem is probably somebody who isn't too concerned about maneuvering, dodging shells, and angling. The HE shells have an alpha strike of 2700 and an 11% fire chance, which as far as I can tell is the highest alpha strike of all light cruisers at Tier 7, but one of the lower fire chances. Now, of course, that fire chance is mitigated by the high number of guns. I don't know the math, but the fire chance is higher than it looks, because each shell, keep in mind, has an 11% chance to start a fire, and there are potentially 15 shells in every salvo that could hit. Now, Azurlane Atago dials these numbers up to 11. With her, I've increased the alpha strike to nearly 3K, 2,943, and a 17% fire chance, which is outrageous. This thing is a flamethrower with this build. The AP, 3,300 alpha strike. Not bad at all. Torpedoes. This thing's got them. 16 of them in 4 quadruple launchers, 2 placed on either side of the ship. They have a 109-second reload. They do 17,233 max damage, so they hit like trucks, and you're going to see them hit some battleships in this game. 1.7 km detectability by sea, so they aren't exactly stealthy torpedoes, but they do have an 11-kilometer range, and as most cruiser torpedoes tend to do, they go rather slow, 56 knots in the water, sort of comparable with the speed of Fletcher torpedoes. But keep in mind, you can launch 8 of them off either side of your ship. There's a lot of torpedoes, they have very long range, and if they do connect with the target, they are going to hurt it. We should also talk about anti-aircraft defense, although I'm not going to say too much about it because, carriers are still a very new thing and there are none in this game. However, I will say the AA defense rating is 44, and looking at the stats, there are very few anti-aircraft guns with, in my opinion, woefully low average damage per second numbers in comparison to other cruisers at Tier 7 like the Baltimore, which does seem to have very good AA defenses. Maneuverability characteristics of the ship: 34.5 knots in the water. That's half a knot slower than Atago and Mogami, but it's one of the fastest cruisers at the tier. The only thing that's really significantly faster than it is the Tier 7 Amalfi. 750-meter turning circle, which feels tight enough for the purposes of maneuvering, and a 4.5-second rudder shift. Keep in mind that is influenced by the rudder shift mod, but that is a fantastically responsive rudder shift that really can allow you to dodge incoming battleship salvos, which you'll have to do because you are so poorly armored, or so weakly armored, I should say. 10.6 km detectability by sea. I've got that down to 10 km on my build with Mikawa inspiration. That is excellent concealment for a cruiser at this tier. 6.6 kilometer detectability by air, 6.3 on my build. So there are the stats in a nutshell. How does this ship play, and what's it all about? Well, maybe you can see as these torpedoes that I launched a little bit earlier find their mark on the enemy Yamato. And we're only, 5 minutes into this game. We've racked up 126,000 damage with our guns and our torpedoes. By the way, that hit from the Yamato, yeah. This is a ship you don't want to be taking battleship salvos in. I think that might have been one Citadel, and frankly, I was lucky not to be deleted right there. The best thing I can say about this ship is it is a horrific damage dealer. This thing is a menace to battleships with its ridiculous fire chance and its hard-hitting, high-explosive shells, 15 of them coming at you with every salvo. It can rack up the damage just by penetrating battleship superstructure with the relatively high HE alpha strike and also by lighting fires. It can smack people with torpedoes from long range. It is just a horrific damage dealer. It is a menace, and it is not difficult to deal this kind of damage in this ship. To date, this is the highest damage game I've gotten in the Suzuya. It ends up being well over 200k, and I do think we get a Witherer award with it. And yesterday, I think I played this ship 6 or 7 times, and actually I think it was 7 times, and 6 of them I got Witherer medals. That's how efficient this thing is at lighting fires and doing damage with them. It is just one of the best damage dealers, in my opinion, at Tier 7 for cruisers. It is horrific. If you see this thing in a battleship, you need to make it your priority target because it will melt you. And the good thing about that is, while this is a ship that is very, very good at dealing a lot of damage, it is also very easy to punish with its, relatively thin armor. Unlike something like, say, the Ochakov, which you can shoot at in a battleship and mostly expect to get over-penetrations and not score citadels usually, although of course sometimes you can. There are always exceptions to those kind of statements. It's a different story with the Suzuya. It is much more like the Mogami in terms of taking hits, and if you've played the Mogami extensively, you know that if you're not careful, you can get wrecked in that thing. The same is true of this ship, which I regard as something good for balance. I think something with this amount of firepower and, you know, just this ability to pump out raw damage numbers like this. We're already up to 183,000. Something with this kind of ability should be easy to punish if it's making a mistake, i.e. giving broadside. And this ship certainly is. So you do have to be careful. You do need to practice angling. And you do probably want to play this a lot like the Mogami and the Atago, in that you want to kite away, maintain an angle away from enemy battleships, kite away, and just keep firing at them with the excellent high explosive. There you see 5,800 damage from that salvo, and there we go, the GK just overmatched our stern there, hit us for 8k. As I said, this ship is very easy to punish. We're on quite low health now. Our torpedoes, though, they're going to find their mark on the GK. I think we're going to get 2 hits, and you can see that that is nearly enough to take him out and put us well over 200,000 damage. Something else that's good about this ship is the shell velocity. Seems to be quite fast, especially in comparison to light cruisers. Now, this is no Russian railgun Chapayev or something like that. It's no Ochakov, but it's also no Cleveland either. These shells do have enough, hang time in the air to travel over some islands, but they get quickly to the target, so they're easy to aim at distance. Relatively easy, anyway. Sort of like the Japanese heavy cruisers, and that is a very nice feature. I've had no problems hitting salvos at maximum range and racking up just a metric crap ton of damage. I think this is an incredibly powerful ship. I should also say that even though we really don't face any destroyers in this game, per se, I think we took a shot at one of them, and we're going to take a shot at another before it's over. This shell velocity does make it easier to hit the destroyers at longer to medium ranges, and because the alpha strike on the high explosive shells is so good, and because there are 15 shells, I'm pretty sure this thing could theoretically one-shot a destroyer at close enough range if it gets enough of its 15 shells to land and penetrate, which of course it would because they are 155mm shells, and they should have no problem penetrating any destroyer hull except for maybe the Khabarovsk's 1 or 50mm plating. Nevertheless, I don't know what more to say about this ship other than it is a damage dealer like very few others at Tier 7, and it is also vulnerable, which I think is a good combination. I think if you're a long-time player of this game, you will appreciate this ship very much. I think this is the Mogami in its truest form, and I think it's in contention for one of the strongest damage-dealing cruisers at Tier 7. It is fantastic. I love it. I'm going to get the Admiralty backing, and I'm going to finish this campaign. I think if you like this kind of gameplay, you probably want to do that as well. So there's the Suzuya for you. Lots of damage. Hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.